Hi there, I'm Timothy Linsdau, video producer, Christian, putting on my civics and citizen cap today, if you will, with all the angst and concern today that we're having. What are people saying? What can be done? First, like and comment on my video if you would, and subscribe to support my channel. Went to a church service yesterday in a park. Very beautiful day here in Southern California. A lot of folks together enjoying the day. We had a fine time, really did. Even with all the struggle and concerns out there, the local paper says we're in an age of heavy anxiety. Americans feel jittery, and that's the case. You know, people here. They spoke to a number of ministers. Our own minister in that I went to in that service in the park showed the same headlines I'm looking at, saying it matched his sermon yesterday on worry. As a Christian, we know the verses of be anxious for nothing, take everything to the Lord in prayer. And that's what we do. It is a struggle. It doesn't mean you aren't going to feel pain and suffer from other people's pain. As an American, you see these shootings across the country. The pain for those that have loss, it's got to be terrible. But even as an American, you feel loss too, that the nation feels confused and strained and jittery. You think about the fact that one minister made the point that she was, during her sermon, all of a sudden her mind started to wander and think about, what am I going to do if a shooter starts shooting? What am I going to do? And she says, here I am in the middle of my sermon, and that's how anxious I am about that too. Our own congregation locked the doors when we start our services. We probably have an armed officer or we have quite a few officers of the law, as many do, and they probably are armed. It's just an unfortunate time. One of the reports I thought was an interesting statistic, that recently there are 281 death toll from the death toll is 281 deaths from firearms a week in the United States. Of course, we've had more deadly times. 8%. That's 8% of the average weekly death toll among Americans during the Civil War. Of course, that's a major difference. The Civil War was deaths on the battlefield, not deaths in your neighborhood or in your church from gunfire. And anxiety feels more like the norm after a while. You either become numb to it, or you start medicating yourself or other forms of activity to distract yourself from it. Some counselors are saying that's what they're seeing coming to their office now, is this constant feeling of anxiety of what's going to happen next. And I have to confess, I've had more thoughts about, having a concealed weapons license, or, where's my gun at? Is it available? Or should I have one? Or those kind of thoughts. They go through your mind. You want to at least have a feeling. Cameras, more and more cameras, outside your house, shining on your walkway or your driveway to see what's going on while you're asleep. But then again, it's been, almost 30 years since we had a robbery in our house, and we actually had what's called a hot robbery. In other words, somebody came in the house while we were here at night, and that was not pleasant. God protected us. We were kept safe, and even though we lost a little bit, our insurance covered it all. Nobody was hurt, including this perpetrator. And of course we got into more high security in our house, and there you are. And that was 30 years ago. But can't deny the crisis that people are feeling. And one of the local police officers made a point that all the ways we communicate with each other now is just a tip of your finger. He's made the point that no matter what happens now, it's news immediately. So you're being bombarded constantly with this stuff. And you can't expect it not to bother you. One of the local reverends of a large mega church preparing his sermon was called by a member that has a business in El Paso, and they said the city is broken. There's hardly any cars on the road, and that was over one incident. Even though there's 280 firearm deaths a week, it had a huge impact on the entire city, and it should have. It's an overall feeling of tension, the constant bombardment of not only the shootings, but now it's race. The nation's been struggling with race issues since the beginning. And politicians use it to their advantage, constantly bombarding people to the point that you're overwhelmed by it. You're constantly thinking of, am I saying and doing the right thing? Am I not offending somebody? And I recall having a job in a place where it was a large mixed race environment that I didn't grow up with, and realizing over time I became friends with a lot of people of different races. I didn't notice the difference anymore by that familiarity, by getting to know people, getting together. I'm involved in a lot of civic activities, either through things like Kiwanis Club or Boy Scouts, doing a lot of that. And you get to know a lot of people in different races, especially in this location where I live, only a couple miles from the border with Mexico. Some Mexicans say they face a lot of racism. I don't know how much of that is caused by just the constant bombardment of news and politicians' behavior. It's too easy for activists and others to use that as racism. I'm probably a minority in my neighborhood, but I don't notice anything that it matters at all. My neighbors are Mexican American, and one is probably second or third generation. The other was first. They immigrated. Fantastic neighbors. I couldn't ask for better people, and I hope they say the same about me. You know, that could be used as a racist statement, of course. But we're just folks. We know each other. We're neighbors. We care for each other. We borrow things back and forth. Keep an eye on each other's pets when we travel and things like that. You know, we're people trying to get along and be good people. You know, that's. Anyway, so personally, I have some experiences like that, and so everyone has trauma, and no one gets a pass in this environment when it's constantly flowing at you. What are the reasons? Well, my pastor wrote this about public schools' consent sex education. What's it accomplished? Well, he writes that the Me Too movement is one thing that shows for that sex education, or it's the sexual revolution. I must be specific about what he said. He's saying the sexual revolution was not good for women. The Me Too movement is an example of that. So let's look at some statistics. They also say the movement, it's basically been a disaster for children and families, the sexual revolution. In 1965, 24% of black infants were born to single mothers. 3.1% of white infants born to single mothers. Today's figures, black non-Hispanic black are nearly 70% born to unmarried mothers. Non-Hispanic white, 28%. Hispanic, 52%. And Asian, 12%. So he's making the point that traditional values result in much better outcomes. What he's implying is that it was more traditional in 1965, and more kids had intact families than they do today. And that has come up many times that these young shooters, they find out they're fatherless, disconnected for multiple reasons. And, what do we do? Pastors all make the point about their faith, about the golden rule, treating others as you'd have them treat you. Actually, pretty simple things. One example of the angst in going on in the country is now kids can buy bulletproof backpacks. And some counselors say, wow, it's come to this now. And of course the backpacks couldn't stop a rifle bullet, probably a pistol bullet, but there you are. So the leaders of our communities, ministers, civic leaders, politicians, everything has become polarized. We need to come together really in every way we can. And we fight a battle. We're called to be unifiers and to make people to come together. And that's what we need to do. One pastor finished off here with a verse from Philippians 4:4. Again I say, rejoice in the Lord. Well, there's my message for the day on that subject. I know it's a difficult, sad time, but there's also a lot of goodness, like that service we had yesterday. It was a great day to get together, a beautiful time. And all weekend I was involved in civic activities with people coming together in service to kids, in service to youth. I was with dozens of people doing that. So there's people out there working hard to make life better and life better for kids. So, look at that. Look around at civic organizations that you can get involved in, or your church, and make the most of it. Make the most of it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. So like and comment on my video and subscribe to support my channel. And, find a good group out there and get together and make it a great day.